Okay, welcome to Security Trends and Malware Analysis. I'm Emmett Gray. This is like a video introduction to the course, like a video version of the syllabus. There will be a quiz on what happens in this video, so you do have to watch it and have to pay attention. Okay, so welcome. There's an awful lot of stuff in here, and most people walk away from this course going, wow, I didn't know that. There's tons and tons of stuff in here that esoteric detail that you would never run across in normal world. So yeah, lots of stuff. It basically provides everything you need to know about how a malware attack works and therefore how you can end up defending against it. Now, I'm not talking about you know, becoming a researcher at some, antivirus company. I'm just talking about getting the base material to be able to make decent choices. Okay. There's lots of hands-on lab work. Now, in a real-world scenario, we'd be spending an entire class period. Okay, now everyone do this, this, this. And I'd wander around and check. This is an independent study, so I'm gonna end up doing the hands-on, okay, which is not at all ideal. And I'm expecting you to do the same thing. I mean, in theory, you could, do it right then and there. Put the video on pause and go do this and come back and watch. Put the video on pause and go back. That's where you could do it if you wanted. Anyway, lots of hands-on stuff, quite in-depth in some places. There's a whole chapter to cover. Anyway, I try to stress the concepts and philosophies rather than have you memorize stuff. That's just not my style. So independent study with asynchronous video lectures. Again, this is not exactly ideal, but I understand your situation and there's not much of a choice. This is a fun course. Most people enjoy this course because they learn all sorts of weird things about their computer they didn't need to know about. Tons and tons of tools. And in fact, if we had to rename this course, it'd be Tools, Tools, Tools. That'd be the name of it. And look, since you are going to learn how malware works, you're inadvertently going to know how to build malware. So don't do that. I mean, I'd hate to read in the newspaper, John Brown convicted of malware, and he learned how to do it from going to Texas A&M University, Central Texas. Like, what? So the book. This is getting to be a kind of an old book, I will tell you. I've searched high and low for a replacement book that's a little better. Don't have it. So we're going to stick with this old book, but I'm going to supplement it with tons of material. I say 20% down there, but quite frankly, it's probably closer to 40%. The material is not in the book, comes from me. Okay, online videos. The video lectures are released, in weeks. Released on Monday. Typically one chapter long, about 1 to 1.5 hours. If you do the math, it comes out to about 18 hours worth of videos. And you might be thinking, 18 hours? Oh my God, that's a heck of a lot of time spending watching videos. Well, if this was a face-to-face class and it meant, 16 weeks at an hour and 15 minutes, you do the math, that comes out to 40 hours. So 18, you're making out like a bandit. And the videos are broken up into 15-minute chunks because, I know you just have a life. You can't spend, hours glued to a screen. There's other competing priorities for your time. So we break this thing up into 15-minute chunks just to give you a breather. Okay, and then later on, I might show you that, you can speed up the YouTube videos by going to the gear and telling it to speed things up. Might help, maybe not. So asynchronous content, obviously all this is recorded in advance. And so you're not going to be able to raise your hand and go, wait, I have a question. You can't email me something, Canvas email, saying, hey, I'm having trouble with this. Or even if you were smack dab in the middle of an assignment and you could say, look, I'm at step 4 in this assignment and I do not remember that at all. Could you help me out? That kind of stuff. And if you need to have a real meeting, well, we could do something, a real face-to-face or a virtual face-to-face, depending on what works for you. So this is a lecture-heavy class. And what that means is, if this was a face-to-face class, you'd have to show up, pay attention, and take notes. It's exactly the same. You have to show up, you have to watch the videos, and you have to take notes. It's absolutely identical. And here's the kicker. All the quizzes and assignments are based upon what's said and done in lecture, not out of the book. Okay? All right. I have a very few PowerPoint slides, usually, just to show off some, graphical thing. I use my lecture notes instead. More about lecture notes. I basically have a script that I follow when I do my videos or do my face-to-face courses, just sort of like an outline, and I make sure I'm staying on topic. Um, but when it comes to writing the quizzes, well, I actually don't look at the book at all. I mean, I look at my notes and going, "Oh, wait, that'd make a really good question," right? So that's how I use my lecture notes. So this is an active class. Some classes are kind of passive class where you just kind of sit back and go, okay, got it. Move on. This is where I'm going to talk about, let's just use Wireshark as an example. We're going to talk about how Wireshark works, and then you're going to do it. And then we're going to talk about a disassembler, and we're going to do it. It's all about doing stuff, not just sitting back going, yeah, that's cool. No, you're actually going to have to apply what you learn. And we're not memorizing and regurgitating. My God, that's a horrible way to learn. So obviously this is, an online/independent study. So everything is done through Canvas. I mean, no paper involved. You do need a decent machine. And I will tell you, quite frankly, you're probably going to need a Windows 10 machine, or I'm sorry, a Windows machine. I'm going to be using a, Windows 11 machine at home. The university library has machines you can use, and they even have a few that you can check out. I'm not really recommending using an Apple Mac on this class at all. Just saying, there are some things you can do to get Windows on one of those devices. You need a reliable internet connection. It'd be kind of bad if you're in middle of a thunderstorm and you lose power or you lose internet while you're in the middle of a quiz. Yeah, that would be pretty bad. So, Windows-based machine. It would be really, really nice if you had access to a real honest-to-God, x86 architecture, PC. We are going to be installing software that is not available on Apple Mac or ARM-based Windows. So, if you have one of those, Parallels or VirtualBox, if you have one of the older Intel Macs, emulation, for Apple Silicon, are cloud-based things. I mean, you could go to the cloud. So here's the little diagram. This is probably needlessly complex, but if you have a real honest-to-God machine, you're done. You don't have to look at the rest of this. You install the software. We're going to be using VirtualBox, and then install the guest, and we're done. Okay, no big deal. If you have an ARM-based machine, well then, yeah, that's going to be a little different. I don't recommend it because we're using Windows 10 over here with VirtualBox, and that's not going to work in an ARM-based machine at all. You could use a Windows 11, but things are going to be a little different. I'm going to skip the Intel-based Mac because most likely you don't have any of those. So you're going to need emulation. There's a piece of software called UTM, and it will turn Apple Silicon into an x86 architecture. It's pretty amazing stuff. It works. It is not fast, but it works. And here, again, you could install Windows 11, a special version of an ARM-based version of Windows 11. But, will the software work? I'm not recommending it. I'm really not. Okay. So we're going to be doing everything, since we're working with viruses, we're going to do everything in an isolated environment. We're going to be using a Windows 10, not 11, a Windows 10 in VirtualBox. So I'm going to be using VirtualBox, and I'm going to be using Windows 10. Okay. I don't want you to do any of this work on your real machine. We're going for example, the term project is going to scour your machine looking for Social Security numbers and credit card numbers and sends it off to some FTP site in the sky. I mean, you really want to run that on your real machine? I don't know. So, and when you do install Windows 10, don't install anything else. I mean, no extra. I like Chrome. No, don't install anything else. Certainly not anymore antivirus. Okay, leave it the heck alone. All right. So to do this, you're going to need an account on Microsoft called Azure for Students. There's a document in supplemental materials that gives you kind of a brief rundown on how to apply for it. You're going to need this account because you're going to be downloading a Windows 10 ISO file and an activation key. So when it comes time to install Windows, you'll have the media and the license key both. Okay, what are your expectations for this course? Man, you're going to learn an awful lot about malware design and the inner workings of the computer. That's the part that most people walk away with thinking, wow, that was kind of cool. And you're going to apply your knowledge by finding and analyzing malware threats. I'm going to infect your machine, and you're going to have to go figure out what it did. Okay. And you don't really need to be a computer expert, although quite frankly, we're almost to the edge of that where, yeah, that'd be pretty handy. And we're not really going to do any programming, although I will show you C# code. Now, I'm not asking you to program it, but we are going to list it, and we're going to go over and discuss it. Most of this is kind of simple, like an if statement here. And, it doesn't matter what computer language that you know. Viewing C# code should be okay. We're going to cover 13 chapters in the book. Oddly enough, some of the chapters are, in my opinion, are in the wrong order. And so I kind of skip around. It's not even into the second week before we end up doing some dynamic analysis. Okay, I show this at the beginning of every class. It's Bloom's Taxonomy of Learning. So what this is all about is you need to understand where I'm coming from. So we have kind of an agreement on an expectation. So in grade school, it was all in the blue area down there at the bottom. It was, memorizing state capitals, that kind of stuff. We're in college now, so I'm expecting green. I'm expecting implement, solve, use, demonstrate, do, verbs, do something, okay? Organize, relate, compare, contrast, distinguish, all those kinds of things. So we're in the green. And so one of the things I talk about is this what versus why. What kind of question is, what's the capital of South Dakota? And in my opinion, the correct answer is, I don't know, I'll look it up. I don't need to memorize state capitals. It has never come in handy at all. So I'm not asking you to do much memorizing in this course. A what kind of question, you can just say, well, let me throw that into Google or use some AI tool and it'll tell me, what to do. That's great. It might. But it probably won't tell you why you're doing it. So instead of having you memorize, state capitals, I'm after the story behind it. Like, why did the state capital move to Austin? Where was it before and why did it move? That's a cool discussion. It has nothing to do with memorizing. It has to do with pretty cool story. So understanding helps you with, making a good choice. I mean, for example, there may be 3 different ways of doing this, but I'm recommending one of them, and you really need to know why. Or what's the long-term benefits? I mean, if I do it this way, is it going to come back to haunt me? That kind of stuff. Okay, course requirements. 2 exams, a midterm and the final. Final's not comprehensive. It's just the second half of the course. There's going to be a review session before the exam. 6 take-home quizzes. Usually takes about 20-30 minutes. 6 assignments. You're submitting a Word document with screenshots. Make sure you're following along. I'm going to say, take a screenshot of this. And so a typical assignment would have maybe not even have any words in it at all. It'll just be screenshot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you're drown down the list. And please, stretch these things out till they hit the margins. Don't make me go get a magnifying glass to be able to read your assignment with these screenshots. A term project's kind of cool. I'm going to give you a very specific, rather nasty virus that's going to scan your machine and collect data and send it off to someplace. You're going to have to go figure out exactly what's going on, figure out who it's connected to, send out what's being sent, lots of stuff. And then a participation score, which is based upon a syllabus exam we haven't talked about yet, and journals, which we haven't talked about yet. Okay, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark. I mentioned that we break these things up into 15-minute chunks. So let's continue again in part 2.